What's up, guys? We got another episode of Consumed, and this one's going to be a tiny bit different, only because, one, you guys are seeing that I'm wearing these 6 sunglasses, and two, the inspiration around this Consumed episode is actually another YouTube video. It's not from an article that I read over the past week, and this inspiration came from my favorite YouTuber named Casey Neistat. And if you guys are not aware of Casey Neistat, he's got about 10 million subscribers. He is one of maybe a few people that I watch on a consistent basis. He is kind of one of the inspirations that made me start my YouTube. And though we have drastically different styles, my first video, the Joshing Around episode that I did in Chicago, a lot of the elements I tried to emulate Casey Neistat in a way, just because that was my playbook for all of this. Casey Neistat, kind of famously has taken on this persona that he wears these sunglasses in his videos, and I figured, since I'm going to be talking about him, why not film this video in my sunglasses? So I hope you guys don't mind that. But the inspiration around this episode of Consumed was a video that Casey put out surrounding a little bit of his new company called 368. And he's been doing a video kind of series around that over the last few months, ever since he announced his new project, his new company called 368. And when he first announced this, there was one element that I was kind of really excited about, and it was something that he hadn't really talked much about. And I was excited to kind of hear some of the details around it, because they actually paralleled a lot of the things that I've been saying in client strategy meetings and just kind of around some of my networks, my friends, around where I think kind of business is going. So I was excited to see that the thoughts that Casey had were very similar to things that I've been pitching. And it gave me a kind of inspiration to make this video and just kind of talk about it in general. The concept that he was kind of speaking about was that 368 was going to have an element, kind of like an incubator for YouTubers. Incubators are not like a new kind of strategy. They've been in tech or local communities even. I know in Youngstown, Ohio, where I grew up, they have a pretty famous business incubator. But he's talking about not tech. He's not talking business. He's talking around like YouTube. And I think rolled that up a little bit more macro. He's talking about like attention and creating an incubator where essentially he's creating more and more personalities, more and more influencers to eventually be able to deploy in this new kind of economy. This is something that I've said in countless meetings. And what I'm talking about is that if you go and poll 10-year-olds, 12-year-olds, and you ask them, what do you want to be when you grow up? The answer used to be, doctor, baseball player, lawyer, whatever. Now, the number one answer, and this is by far the number one answer, is usually they want to be like a YouTuber or an influencer. Those are usually their answers. And you got to take a step back and think about that, how crazy that kind of sounds to somebody like myself that's in my early 30s. Like, that wasn't a thing. When I was a freshman in college, Facebook came out, but Facebook was a way to connect with people in some of your classes or in your apartment complexes. That was the way to do it, to kind of have more people come to your parties in college. That was the concept around that. And it wasn't until the kind of the late 2000s that social networks kind of started to evolve past just the networking side of things and into a business tool. And that's kind of when things started to shift, when people realized, hey, this is a great way to completely cut out a lot of the middleman. And in early 2010s is when things kind of shifted again into influencer marketing type of era. But over the last decade, we've seen that explode like crazy, to the point where, our youth is actually thinking about being an influencer or a YouTuber or a content creator as a career, and as a career that they think they can make a lot of money at. So circling back to what like Casey Neistat is talking about is, he's talking about creating an incubator to help other YouTubers become better YouTubers. Generally, people, or in kind of traditional sense, companies will apply or register to an incubator in exchange for being accepted into the incubator and getting a lot of like high-end resources, some element probably of money. You generally have to give up a piece of your equity, and usually there's also kind of an ongoing agreement that if something works out well during the incubator or post-incubator, generally there's some type of trigger event that that incubator can claim either more equity or some other element of the company. In kind of Casey Neistat's 368 example, he's going to help new, exciting, emerging YouTubers kind of follow a game plan, one that he has successfully implemented. A lot of his friends have implemented. I honestly think this is like maybe one of the smartest things that I've honestly ever heard of. So what I'm talking about here is that because influencer marketing is becoming so important, for those that are not aware of like what influencer marketing is, honestly, it's scaling the unscalable of like a personal recommendation, where they have, instead of being able to tell 5 of their friends or family, they tell 50,000, 500,000, 5 million of their friends that are following them on their social media. As this becomes more and more popular, and not only more popular, but more effective over time, brands are going to have to spend more and more money to acquire these social media influencers' audiences. And because those audiences are going to become more and more expensive to acquire from companies, those social media influencers are going to become more and more of a hot ticket and be able to charge more money for their audiences. And if you have a kind of a basket of influencers that you are kind of owning pieces of the pie of, you essentially are creating a new age venture capital firm. But instead of owning pieces of like traditional companies, you're owning pieces of kind of these new social influencers. And when it boils down to it, social influence and influence in general is kind of the main target in all of this. If somebody has an audience and that audience is influenced at a great degree, that person is highly leverageable in tons of different ways. They're not category specific. They aren't business or industry specific. They can, find a way to influence their audience in a variety of different ways. What Casey's kind of saying is like, he is putting all of his eggs in the future that he sees, a future that I see as well, in that most of us are going to have to leverage our personal brand to be successful in anything that we do. And I heard a kind of a recent quote that said, if you're not putting your kind of thoughts out to the world on social media and all these things, you honestly don't exist in this kind of 2018 world. And though that may seem extreme, that person's basically trying to shock you in a way that makes you understand that honestly in 2025, that could be a true statement. And if you're not thinking about putting your thoughts out there and creating influence in a way that you're able to attract different things into your life, you might not be as successful as kind of other people. And you see that already in kind of industries that are a little bit forward than others. You see like article after article of them talking about how a certain actor or actress got a prominent role in a film because they had a big social following that can create kind of a snowball effect to its popularity. So what Casey is basically saying is like, this is where the world's going. Though the bleeding edge industries are already kind of there, all industries are going to start moving in that direction. And to get anything done in this world, you're going to have influence. And if you have a kind of like a portfolio of influence, you then have a lot of the power. So honestly, I mean, those thoughts were exactly where I've been going with kind of consumer packaged goods meeting. And just to kind of shift this a little bit to my target audience, and I'm talking mostly big food, beverage, like big CPG portfolio brands. A lot of them are struggling at this point because they have been push marketing for decades, pushing into grocery stores, pushing into mass retailers, pushing into drugstores and club stores. That's what they've been doing for so long, and that's worked really well because the foot traffic was there, and people would roam the aisles, and you can put a yellow sticker on something and it attracts somebody's eye, and they buy it. That is kind of slowly eroding. And these CPG brands, because they've been built around pushing, they generally have a lot of technical brand managers. They have a lot of sales staff, but a lot of them don't have branding strategy or marketing department that actually is creative in a way to create pull, which is a much different beast than pushing sales on people is. So during these kind of meetings, when I'm talking about what I say like media company mentalities, brands instantly start talking about like extremely kind of narrow-minded ideas. They're, if we're talking nutritional supplements, they're like, well, what if I do workout tips? What if I do recipes with my protein or something like that? And though those things can be effective and they're great, they have been done so many different times before that they're not as effective as they could be. And though they need to be an element of your media company mentality, you have to move well past this like hard creative and into more soft creative. Create concepts, create these kind of like digital TV shows that I talk a lot about, and create more of a portfolio of influence. And at this point in the video, I might go a little bit too far for a lot of people to kind of ring back in and understand how it can be applied to their business. But this conversation was primarily around the idea of kind of the shift in the way that business is going to be done in the future. And this is the shift from traditional brands to personal brands having more power in the market. And I know I've thrown this example around several times, but indicating example that I always like to throw out is Kylie Jenner. Kylie Jenner being a personal brand, a highly leverageable personal brand, she's not only was able to sell different sponsored posts or different things like that, she was able to create $1 billion beauty brand on the back of her influence only. And the influence that she built organically herself and through what her family has built. That one person did more than hundreds of brands could do with corporate resources and a lot of other kind of strategy people or whatever. She had more power to wield as a personal brand than any of those brands had by creating these kind of corporate brands. And that's kind of what I would see as the future, what's going to happen. And I don't think I'm alone. I think this idea of social capital and leveraging influence in the future is what a lot of these other kind of tuned in people are talking about, be it Casey Neistat, be it Gary Vaynerchuk, any of these guys. I mean, those two, extremely intelligent individuals are speaking about something that maybe people are listening to, they're not hearing it. And what I mean by that is they are the bleeding edge examples of what's going to happen in the future. And as just kind of CPG brands or any kind of consumer brands, they need to be thinking about how do they build these capabilities so that they don't have to overpay for them in the open market. Because just as you have to spend a ton for Super Bowl ads or media buys or anything like that, you're going to have to spend that much to get certain influence in the next 5-7 years. So I know this video was a little bit different than normal. I hope you guys got some value out of it. It definitely was fun for me to make. This is a topic that I talk a lot about, an area that I will probably spend considerable amount of time on in the next couple of years of my content. So get used to hearing these things, and hopefully a lot of the stuff that I am talking about showing its face a little bit more to becoming true, so it can gain some momentum. Because I know when there's going to be a lot of people that watch this video that are going to say, what is this kid talking about? And I hope that you don't initially kind of just kick back on these ideas as being a futurist or a millennial or anything like that, because there's just a lot of indicators in the market right now that are proving these things to be coming true. I want to thank you guys for listening to this video. If you guys have gotten this far, make sure you guys are smashing the thumbs up button. If you guys have not done this so far, subscribe to my YouTube channel. And as always, I don't charge for any of this content. The only thing I ask in return is that you guys will tell a friend or tell a colleague so we can grow this community a little bit stronger and bigger. But just want to thank you guys again for giving me a little bit of your time out of your day, and I'll see you guys on the next one.